Hey folks, it's Fernando doing another video for more survivalists. In this case, we're going to be talking about black swan events and what you can do so as to prepare for them. This is because of an email that I got from one of you guys. A viewer says, "Hi modern survivalists, greeting from Mexico. Hi folks in Mexico. I'm a big fan of your videos. Can you upload a video or an article about what to do and how to prepare for a black swan event? Please, I'm asking for your help on this." Okay, the concept of black swan events became popular with a book called Black Swan. I think it was Nassim Taleb, the author of the book, more linked towards finances and economy and how they may be affected by high-low events, high-impact, low-probability events. These would be natural disasters, maybe earthquakes, tsunamis, and how they would have an impact on businesses and how it is that you should prepare so as to be ready for them. Now, that's for the average guy, the average person that is not a modern survivalist. If you're a modern survivalist, these events are really not that much of a surprise for you. Black swan events are events that catch people by surprise and have a major impact. If you are into survivalism and preparedness, you basically have to understand that even though these events are, sure, using the term loosely, they are unlikely. At the same time, if something has happened before in terms of preparedness, it really isn't that unlikely. And if you start analyzing and studying these things, you see that these supposedly unlikely events, black swan events, in terms of natural disasters, earthquakes, tsunamis, they happen in places, in areas that have seen them before. Floods, earthquakes, tornadoes, these things have happened before in that same region, in that same area. If it wasn't the year before that, it was a decade before that, or 50, 100 years ago. If you are looking at an area that has seen earthquakes in the past 50 years, you cannot really be surprised that you see another one in the future. I mean, if an earthquake takes place in LA and destroys half of the city, you cannot be really that surprised, given that scientists have been talking about this stuff and predicting one for I don't know how long now, and pretty much saying a big earthquake in that same region is very much unavoidable in the next decade to come. So, you know, is it a black swan event? Yeah. Is it completely unexpected, especially for someone that is a modern survivalist and analyzing these things and trying to prepare as best as possible? Not really. Even though you cannot really prepare for absolutely everything, 90% of these cases, especially talking about natural disasters and such, they have happened before in that same region. There are events that change, and because of they change naturally or because of the action of men, and may end up causing a disaster in a certain area for the very first time. An overgrown region with vegetation, and that catches fire, and you're talking about a wildfire in an area that hasn't seen one before. That could happen. If you're talking about maybe a nuclear disaster because of a nuclear power plant that was built nearby 5-10 years ago. Yeah, sure, it could be a first in that region, in that area, but if you have done your research properly, you probably would have understand that with a nearby power plant that could have happened. Same thing for industrial districts. If you're talking about large amounts of chemicals being used for industrial purposes, those involve a certain risk as well. So you cannot be completely surprised if that happens. Again, research goes a long way, and the more you go back in time and look at what has happened in that area before, the more you're likely to not get caught completely by surprise when these things happen yet again, or happen for the first time because of these factors involved. Now, what would be like black swan events within the modern survival mindset? Things that are not that are even more unlikely. Maybe a global pandemic, even though we've seen pandemics before that have killed millions of people, really hasn't happened that long ago. But a global pandemic would be something that, to some extent, could be considered a high impact, low probability event in the looking at the broader picture. A global pandemic spreading fast with high mortality rate, that would be maybe a black swan event. A global financial crisis, Third World War, a nuclear war, that would be a pretty serious event. Could be considered a black swan event, even for survivalist terms. A meteor strike, something that is completely out of the blue that you have no way of expecting and preparing for. Those would be things that could be considered black swan events for survivalists and preppers. Now, the only thing that you can do so as to prepare for those, we're not anymore talking about things that you can somewhat visualize, you can somewhat see happening yet again, or for the first time after analyzing and studying your region. You basically, so as to prepare for the unexpected, you're basically looking at this from two sides. You're looking at covering from the rule of three perspective. Remember, you cannot survive 3 minutes without air. You cannot survive 3 hours of exposure to extreme conditions. You cannot survive 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. How much water do you have? How much food do you have? Are you going to be able to breathe if air is compromised by any means, by any reason? Could be because of a pandemic, could be because of smoke, could be because of fallout, could be because of a volcano eruption and suddenly air is full of volcanic ash, But the rule of three tells you you cannot live 3 minutes without air. So you must have some way, somehow, ensure breathable air. Those are things that always become useful and keep you in track so as to understand, you need these things to stay alive no matter what. So those should be covered to some extent. On the other side, look at the 7 circles of preparedness. I've done a video of this before. 7 circles of preparedness. Basically, the first one is your mind, your head. So your brain, that's the first circle. The mindset that you have. Without the right mindset, everything else falls apart. If you don't have the right mindset, it doesn't matter what else you do. What attitude do you have? Do you have the mental fortitude to overcome what life throws at you? Disasters, just everyday life. Do you have that or not? Do you have the right mindset? Do you have even the skills? Have you been acquiring them? How are you in terms of what skills do you have so as to be ready for the most probable events or the more critical ones? Expanding a little bit more on that circle, we now include your body. How is your body looking? How physically capable are you? Have you had a recent medical check? Do you know where you're standing in terms of basic health? What's your cardio like? Are you going to be able to run for a couple of blocks to save your life if that's needed? Are you going to be just dropping dead because you're in such bad physical shape that you're overweight, you have high blood pressure, you have all these things? These are elemental things for preparedness in general. Expanding that circle, the third circle would now include what's on your body, your clothes, and what's in your pockets. In general, for the average person, a cell phone, wallet, sure. Where legal to do so. Do you have a firearm with you? Do you have a pocket knife, multi-tool, a flashlight? Things that we've talked about so many times, and we'll continue to talk about them in the future as well. But these are tools that give you an edge in disasters no matter what. A flashlight for signaling, for making your position noticed, for finding your way when there's no light. it's pretty much essential and maybe life-saving even. Tools, multi-tools, these are all things that would be extremely handy during a number of possible events. Expanding a little bit more, moving on to the fourth circle. And here, if we were looking at a worst case scenario, this circle may be your vehicle, your car, your home away from home, maybe your office. What do you have there? Do you have supplies? Do you have a little bit of more survival and emergency kit, food, extra set of clothes? Expanding a little bit more to the fifth circle, you're looking at your house, right? What do you have in your house for basic, preparedness in case of blackouts, power outages? Do you have food? And this integrates with the rules of three. How long will you be able to put food on the table? How much water do you have? Do you have a first aid kit? Do you know how to use it? Going back to circle number one in terms of the skills that you have. Do you know how to take care of basic medical emergencies? That's the kind of thing that may end up being very valuable when dealing with the unexpected, when dealing with things you haven't planned for. The sixth circle would be your neighborhood, your community, your state. What resources do you have there? How could you move if you have to evacuate your home? Do you have friends, family nearby that could take you in? What would you be doing if staying is no longer an option? Final circle, the seventh circle, would be other countries, the rest of the world. If staying in that country is no longer an option, how likely is that to happen? Again, this would be more of a black swan event, but there are cases where staying even within the country, even within the continent, depending on what's happening, may not be an option. Maybe war would be a good example of something that forces you to leave that place that you never thought you would be leaving. But that would be a black swan event in that case. Folks, as always, remember to share the video, subscribe. See you on our next video. Have a great day.